You are here today for us to update you on what the ACC is doing about audit reports generally, but what the ACC is doing about the 2019 audit, which includes the 2020 COVID-20 audit.
Corruption is a vile disease that sucks and drains the health out of something good. Corruption in society is an evil moral infection that keeps community in the state of perpetual sickness.
The former Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Godwin Emefiele illegally lodged billions of naira in no fewer than 593 bank accounts in the United States, United Kingdom, and China without the approval of the Apex Bank's Board of Directors and the CBN Investment Committee.
Professor, let me talk now about the issue we don't be concerned for over a week now from Sierra Leoneans them where they save money in our commercial banks them. People they don't complain, see, then they gonna banks them, the bank they tell them say money no day. Waiting and the request for the bank not they able for give them the exact money. When are they your money, then give the bank them for keep. The bank then they say money don't shorting. Waiting really they happen.
Well, money not shorting at this country. Money shorting at the banking system.
Why?
Well, at the beginning of the year, before COVID, we may know so we get enough money to service this economy. Typically, if we look at the amount of money we can order, over the years, we order 100 million notes, and that they last for 2 years, meaning that 50 million notes per year. At the beginning of the year, we've been getting enough money in the vault that even if we don't order money, it will go through the year. Then COVID came.
2 vice mayors in eastern China have been executed over bribery convictions. Xu Meiyong and Jiang Renjie from Hangzhou and Suzhou, respectively, were executed Tuesday morning on orders of the Supreme People's Court.
You are here today for us to update you on what the ACC is doing about audit reports generally, but what the ACC is doing about the 2019 audit, which includes the 2020 COVID-20 audit.
The office of the Vice President was audited. I think that's why I laid the foundation in explaining the procedures. How does an entity get into the Auditor General's annual report? So it therefore means the required threshold as explained in my preamble when I was introducing this whole talk is that State House and Office of the President and many other institutions never met that threshold. Interestingly, it will interest you to know that, and this is what we want. When the 2020 report came out, the Office of the President was the most quote-unquote bombarded office from all sectors of life. When I'm using the word bombarded, because the media was after Office of the President, the non-state actors were after based on the issues that were in there. And remember, there are individuals managing those offices. Individuals are equally there. And what are we yearning for? Is enough implementation of our recommendations. So State House and Office of the Vice President, we say kudos to them. When we did the 2021 audit, and many other institutions, my brother, they adhere at all the stages that I spoke about. One in the field, the little recommendations that were made, they adhere to them. When we issue the draft report, the few recommendations that were there outstanding, they adhere to them. And this is what we want. So if institutions, we are all crying for institutions to start implementing audit recommendation. I think that is the cry of everybody. If ban is cry put down today, it is as a result of non-implementation of audit recommendation. So if institutions have started implementing, I think the good thing that we start doing is probably other institutions that are far behind to now go there and start understanding what was your relationship, how was the management team, how was this team, how were the internal control set up, how far did they take these issues for them to be addressed. That is what we are all yearning for. So it's not only State House, it's not only Office of the President, but we have many more other institutions that actually took our audit work with every seriousness and assessed they were able to clear the issues that we raised. That was why State House and Office of the President was not in the 2021 report.
Year in, year out, Sierra Leone Maritime Administration is a prominent part of Auditor General's report. Something is seriously wrong at Sierra Leone Maritime Administration. And this year, there are plethora of issues concerning Sierra Leone Maritime Institution. Even though several heads have been prosecuted, we have done a lot of recoveries at the place. We have done all kinds of systems and review with them. As I speak with you, we have about 3 or 4 investigations ongoing in respect of maritime administration. Here they are again, they are in the leaderboard. In terms of Auditor General's report. So at page 91, there is a payment without supporting issues, supporting document issues. At page 91 again, another payment without supporting issues, page 92, page 93 to 94, page 96, page 97, page 98, page 100, page 300, page 500, page 100, page 101, page 101, page 102, page 102, page 103, page 104. All of them cover Sierra Leone Maritime Administration. And the issues are so diverse. They cover payment of
Now joining us on the news to discuss this is Dr. Jide Johnson, a public and policy affairs analyst. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me, Jide Johnson.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to our viewers all over the world.
All right, so you heard this, I'm sure you actually read the story because there was a statement you made, while I was sitting down here. What do you make of the damning revelation that the former CBN governor actually operated 593 illicit bank accounts in these particular countries?
I don't know how Nigeria is still surviving. And you can see the reason why we can't compete and live up to the reputation of the giant of Africa that we have if this type of hemorrhage is happening to our economy over the years. And you look at this particular one, for this particular administration, in terms of the fraud, the alleged fraud committed against humanity, treasonable act committed allegedly by the central bank governor and his deputies, and then you situate that with what happened with Dezani under Jonathan and with the security money with Dasuki Sambo, and then you begin to wonder what are the checks and balances that we have in our system, what are the safety net, and that's why I have it on record. There are many programs I appeared on that I said from the onset that anyone that says Buhari was fighting corruption was deceiving himself, because you can only fight corruption when you put in a system, a mechanism. You can't fight it on the pages of newspaper. And I will see a lot of revelation once Buhari is out of power. And it's coming to terms that the most vaunted leader that acclaimed to have integrity, acclaimed to fight corruption, that came into power on the basis of corruption, we are seeing the deep-seated corruption that happened under it. The question you ask is, what are the safety nets that have been put in place so that the present central bank governor
doesn't repeat the same?
Doesn't repeat the same. It's because every administration, at the beginning of the administration, they will come up with an allegation against the previous administration, looking for scapegoat within the previous administration. For Obasanjo's administration, it was Al-Mustafa. It was Al-Mustafa that was. For Jonathan, Andoka, the Attorney General of Yar'Adua ran away from Nigeria. Now, for Buhari's administration, it was Dezani and Colin Dasuki now for Tinubu's administration. is Emefiele and the 5 directors. What will happen at the end of the day?
Okay, right now, Emefiele is actually being prosecuted for a 1.2 billion naira procurement fraud. Now, a lot of people are actually asking, how was he able to operate these bank accounts so discreetly, you know, without any setting off anything? And some people are actually saying or suggesting that what do you call it? Those in charge of auditing and, you know, every other person that should have known that these bank accounts are being operated should also be held accountable, and not just Emefiele.
The Attorney General of the Federation, then the Minister of Finance, the Auditor General, and all those that are part and parcel of the economic team of the president should be prosecuted because they committed a great crime against this nation. If you look at you could see why Naira had a free fall. You could see why Naira totally collapsed. You could see how would you be keeping such amount of money in foreign accounts and you can't use it to stabilize your own currency. You are helping to build the economy of other nations at the expense of the economy. So it's an economic sabotage. Beyond, look, if this had happened in China, you know what will have happened to this set of people? Firing squad.
2 vice mayors in eastern China have been executed over bribery convictions. Xu Meiyong and Jiang Zhenjie from Hangzhou and Suzhou, respectively, were executed Tuesday morning on orders of the Supreme People's Court. Xu was accused of using his post to garner about $22 million in bribes for property development contracts, on top of other illicit activity. Jiang, too, was accused of taking kickbacks for real estate development projects. Both men had legal appeals rejected. They join a handful of other mid-level officials who have been caught for corruption and turned into examples. Though the higher one goes in the party hierarchy, the rarer such convictions are. China is one of the only countries where people are executed for white-collar crimes.
They will be executed. It's the ultimate price they will pay is the death penalty. Because do you know how many families have lost their lives as a result of the actions or inactions of the central bank governor and those? I read that even the president did not give approval to the redesign, that it was the aid of the president. So how many agencies, how many ministries, how many departments of government exploited that loophole that existed? If we are just focusing on just one of the sector of the economy, if we go to that's why some of us have advocated that we should have a clean break from the past. That those that were retained from the previous administration should have gone with him, like the MD of NNPC. If a searchlight is thrown into NNPC, I'm sure we'll make discovery just like we are making discovery, whether there was subsidy or no subsidy, and how the various subsidy payment we have made in the past, how they have gone.
Okay, now you talked about, these people responsible for, finding out, also being held accountable. But what does the inability of these people and also the regulatory bodies that should have detected, this mass amount of, of monies in these bank accounts, what does it suggest?
And don't forget, it's even the last administration that was celebrating whistleblower. Where were the whistleblower for this particular one? Where is the National Assembly? The National Assembly has turned itself to a rubber stamp in the sense that their oversight function, the banking committee, the committee on banking, both for the House and both for the Senate, what was their function? How did they function? The chairman of those committees too should be investigated and should be prosecuted along with Emefiele for failing to do what they are supposed to do, because it is constitutionally required of them to play oversight role with respect to supervising central bank. And that's why we have said that, look, it's important for president to ensure that once they come into office, they do the needful. There are so many agencies of government that don't have governing board now. All the governing boards have been dissolved. I am sure that Emefiele must have exploited the opportunities when the governing board of central bank was not instituted to have carried out some of these atrocities he has committed. Now, as I speak with you, there are so many boards of federal government agencies and parastatals that have been dissolved, and the chief executive officer of those agencies will be operating like emperor, just like Emefiele and his director operated.
2 vice mayors in eastern China have been executed over bribery convictions. Xu Meiyong and Jiang Zhenjie from Hangzhou and Suzhou, respectively, were executed Tuesday morning on orders of the Supreme People's Court. Xu was accused of using his post to garner about $22 million in bribes for property development contracts, on top of other illicit activity. Jiang, too, was accused of taking kickbacks for real estate development projects. Both men had legal appeals rejected. They join a handful of other mid-level officials who have been caught for corruption and turned into examples. Though the higher one goes in the party hierarchy, the rarer such convictions are. China is one of the only countries where people are executed for white-collar crimes.
Corruption is a vile disease that sucks and drains the health out of something good. Corruption in society is an evil moral infection that keeps community in a state of perpetual sickness. Corruption is a moral virus. It's so potent it leaves its host sick, lethargic, and unable to realize and accomplish all that a well person can. Where corruption thrives, poverty and not prosperity thrives. Wealth is grabbed into the greedy, grubby hands of those who get fat on the toil and labor of good people. Corruption benefits, only temporarily, those who participate in it. Everyone else is a victim of the theft, the deceit, the dishonesty, and the lies that corruption feeds on. You need to know that a corrupt person is stealing from you. Corruption is filthy work and despicable acts of treachery done under the table and behind closed doors. Corruption is a disgusting shame. Corruption keeps a nation back from true development and from progress. Wise investors steer clear of a corrupt environment. They would rather put their resources into a place where the playing field of opportunity is equal for all and not bent towards feeding the financial lust of corrupt, lying, cheating, thieving politicians and government officials. How many wonderful development projects have been lost because the investors didn't want to do business in a swamp of evil? When those great projects go to another nation or to some other place, we all lose. Believe me when I tell you that corruption steals from you, it steals from all of us. Corruption plunders the nation's wealth. Corrupt people compromise on truth, equity, and fairness, choosing instead to feed off the short-term benefits of crookedness, exploitation, and financial perversion. Corruption is not just a personal matter, it's a culture. It's a way of life, not just for individual people, but for companies, communities, governments, and nations. Corrupt nations, hiding behind large companies, will seek to invest in other weak nations in order to take over the assets of the nation that they've invested into. They will provide financial loans to a nation for the much needed infrastructure, and they will do it with assets that they provide. They will sign contracts by lining the pockets of rotten government officials who participate in this kind of corruption and are then held hostage by their own deceit and greed. Corruption is nothing less than a form of theft and national robbery. A corrupt person steals from everyone in society.